Welcome to Dating Deja Vu, the podcast where we talk about your patterns, your pitfalls, and your personal growth in modern dating. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, marriage and family therapist and dating and relationship expert. And today's topic is why people cheat. Guess what? It's not always about sex, baby. So if you're someone who their love life is a little bit of the same over and over again, it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. So let's figure it out together. What's up, Deja crew? Welcome to another episode of Dating Deja Vu. Today, we're going into a topic that brings up strong reactions: cheating. Cheating isn't always about sex. Sometimes it's about escape, ego, emotions, and this sense to feel alive. Most people think it's black and white, right? Someone is selfish. Someone's hurt, right? Hurt people. End of story. That's it. I don't want to know anything else. But the truth is it's much more layered than that. So we're going to talk about this on this episode. If you've been cheated on, this episode is for you, especially if you still don't understand why you cheated and felt shame, confusion, regret. This episode is also for you if you assume that cheating equals sex, which kind of dismisses what's actually going on, and if you want to understand the emotional root behind the betrayal. So let's talk about the stereotype versus reality. So what people assume when someone cheats was they're bored. They're bored with you. They're bored with the relationship. They're just a fuck boy. They're just a player. Like once a player, always a player. They wanted something better than you, or they're evil, selfish, narcissistic, or incapable of love. Now, some of these things can be true about people who cheat, but I want to explain what's underneath that. The truth often, though, sounds like this: I don't feel seen. Now, that's not your fault. That's a them thing, not a you thing. I wanted to feel desirable again. Also a them thing. It wasn't even about them. I just felt numb, right? So I wanted to feel alive. It gave me control when everything else felt out of control. So let's talk about the real reasons people cheat. They aren't about sex. Number one is emotional neglect. This person feels invisible, they feel dismissed or emotionally starved. So think about your ex or maybe the person you're still with and their family, and when you're around their family, do they seem like they're not paid attention to, or when they do speak, it's like criticized or minimized, or someone like jokes back like passive aggressively? They probably this is a clear indication of their reality, and they may have been so emotionally dismissed throughout their lives, and through that created behaviors that they present in their relationships, and oftentimes they are attracting people who keep them stuck in that kind of emotionally dismissive place. And so the affair becomes a mirror, right? You matter, you're wanted, you exist. It's a way to fill this void of I feel invisible, I'm not seen, I'm not heard, my feelings don't matter, my reality doesn't matter, and so on. Now, if you need to get real with yourself and be like, did I create space for this person? Did I listen to them? Did I dismiss them? Now, again, it is not your fault that they chose. There's a lot of people who are emotionally neglected that don't cheat, right? However, what was I attracted to? And was I attracted to, this is a better question, was I attracted to this mysterious kind of quiet, I think art boy in the corner, smoking a cigarette at a coffee shop? Don't smoke. It's bad for you. That's what I'm thinking. What attracted you to someone who is emotionally neglectful or invisible? Someone who didn't speak their minds. That's probably something that you didn't even like in them, but because they've had to learn to protect themselves in this way. Next one is unresolved trauma and abandonment wounds. You're not going to get through an episode of my podcast without talking about trauma and abandonment. Duh. This is when we sabotage intimacy when it gets too real. And that is out of a sense of protection, right? The wounds of childhood, being abused for being seen and heard, or having a parent that was an addict, having a parent who left the family. They don't even have to physically leave. They could be emotionally gone. It's really unfortunate when we have our soldiers come back from war. They're not getting a treatment for what they went through. They're going to just disconnect sometimes. And that's at the expense of their children. They're sitting right in front of you, but daddy needs space, and mommy usually enables that. Like, daddy's tired right now. Now, I understand why the boundaries need to be there, but as a family unit, you need to work together so that those children don't feel like they're being abandoned by their mother or father. And not just war, in all other ways. Daddy's work so hard, mommy's work so hard, or mommy's having a hard time with whatever. When we do this, it reinforces the belief that I'm not worthy of being loved fully, right? So I don't open up to protect myself. And then I believe I'm not worthy of love, but I'm doing it, right? And so oftentimes a cheater, right, will sabotage the relationship by cheating in an effort to not become intimate, in an effort to protect themselves. Now, you're probably wondering why cheating? Why do we do a lot of things? Why do some people cope with food and other people cope with gambling, right? It's their vice. It's the way that they are like, this is my out. I can't say the words. I am leaving because again, they're maybe a bit invisible or dismissive or afraid. So they do the thing so that you ultimately leave them. Next is ego or identity crisis. I just wanted to feel like me again. I unfortunately or fortunately worked with a client who unfortunately was cheated on by her husband of 30 years. And it was, I believe, with like some chick he worked with. She was wretched. She was terrible. She she was worse than the dad. They had kids. I mean, this poor woman, she just texted me the other day. She's like, I am in such a better place. Thank you for holding my hand through a time in my life that was the worst time of my life. I'm so grateful. I'm like, fuck yeah. However, he had that midlife crisis, that career burnout, that lost sense of self, and it triggered for them this need to chase validation. Now, in this case, it's very common with my client and her ex-husband. He is very successful, and things started happening in his business where he was going to be like bought out or some shit. I don't remember the story. And it was almost as if like he was losing these titles and he was losing this authority. And that's when he started cheating. He was going through this identity crisis of my life is kind of being turned upside down. And even though his steady was his marriage, was his children, he chose to go outside of that relationship in an effort to find himself again, which was at the expense of all of the parties. And his kids were old enough to understand. And it gutted her. It gutted her. And she's just like, she's a fun gal. I mean, she's amazing. She's amazing. And he, instead of being like, I need help, I'm going through this identity crisis, I need to talk to somebody because I've put my identity into achievement or making money or whatever. I'm feeling like that's being pulled out from underneath me. So I'm going to cheat. Instead of doing that, getting the help from like a therapist or something. Okay. Number 4, avoidance of hard conversations. Instead of confronting the emotional decay, these people tend to escape. Conflict avoidant people, particularly, sometimes cheat because it feels easier than facing the dissatisfaction. So, kind of what we were just talking about. So, just won't spend much time on this. But, you know, when we are unable to have hard conversations, communicate, talk about things that are bothering us, you know, not only talk about them, but learn from them. Like I can talk until I'm blue in the face. There's a conversation with my husband that was going on for years. And I was just like, I can't talk to you about this anymore. And we ended up going to therapy for it. So it's just like, I need you to hear it from somebody else. So I was having the hard conversations. He was having them with me, but there was no resolution. So then we had to go through therapy to have a third party to create that resolution. And what we realized is he's very logical in his thinking. So he goes into kind of like, how can I be successful in this mode? Is this going to be successful? Is this not going to be successful? And so on. So I get it. However, when we again grew up where conflict, maybe parents had conflict and it was big and it was scary, or they were mad at each other. You knew they were mad at each other because you could feel the tension in the room because you're a kid and you understand like something's wrong here, but nobody was talking about it. Or we just swept everything under the rug and put our smiles on, pretending like we're okay. You didn't learn how to resolve conflict. So then when you're in a situation that you want to get out of, or you need help with, or you need something to change, you don't know how to do that. You're scared to talk. You're scared to have conflict. So we cheat as an effort to sabotage and say, see, I didn't like this, but I couldn't tell you. So I'm going to cheat on you and make you feel like dog shit. Number 5 is around sex. It's unmet sexual needs. So it's often about the communication and shame around your sexual needs. So say that you are getting into a lull sexually, or you've had kids, you've stopped having sex, or one of you has issues with maybe, as we get older, erectile dysfunction, or maybe the woman is having more pain or dryness during sex, so it's not as pleasurable. We need to be having those conversations, right? Instead of just taking sex away, taking sex off the table. Sex is incredibly important. It's not only important for into like romance, passion, intimacy, connection. It's also good for your health and longevity. So when we can't have those conversations and it's just like, oh, Dave, you always just want to have sex with me. And Dave's like, yes, that's true. Or I'm just too tired right now. Or, just kind of shaming them for wanting and desiring you, that can lead to not having your needs met. So I dealt with this in my relationship where, as you get older, things change. And my husband started getting in his head. And because of that, he stopped pursuing me. And I was very hurt by that. And this is actually the conversation I was talking about with the therapist, where it was a constant conversation. Like, I don't understand. Like, do I need to change? And I'm a therapist. So I was like, I don't need to change shit. Well, do I need to change how I approach this? Because I was getting upset because I was constantly being the one who was approaching. And I'm like, okay, dude, I want to feel wanted. Everyone wants to feel wanted. But again, what I realized was in his head, it was this kind of logical thinking. Will I be successful at this? Will I not? And then he was getting in his head about it. And it just became this anxiety that was very different from the man that I met. And I, at one point, said, look, I love you. I made a vow. I don't want to be with anybody else in regards to my emotional connection, but I have sexual needs too. So this is where we're at. I literally had the conversation with him. I said, we're at a crossroad. We either open our relationship up or we fix this. And obviously, he didn't want the first one. I don't even know if I could do that, but it was a conversation, right? And we ended up having to fix it. And it's still a work in progress, but it's definitely something that's, happening. So again, cheating isn't necessarily about wanting someone else. It's about not knowing how to be with yourself or your partner anymore. So let me say that again. It's about not knowing how to be with yourself or your partner anymore and not being able to have those hard conversations. So I want to talk about part 3, the aftermath that no one talks about. So the internal conflict of the cheater, okay? Lots of guilt and shame, lots of guilt and shame. And for good reason. You should feel guilty. Guilt means I did something wrong. Shame means I am wrong. You did something wrong. You went against your vows, you went against your commitment or your partnership, whatever it is. You did something wrong. But then there's also a sense of relief and confusion because this cheating has met an emotional need. Not necessarily, I just cheated on someone. There's an emotional need that you receive. Some feel emotionally bonded to both people, right? Others feel nothing. And that's a little bit more scary than anything else, right? They go, they cheat, they don't feel anything, and they're just like, okay. I think about Breon from Temptation Island who had the threesome. And he was just like, well, I got that out of I don't regret it. I got it out. And now I'm ready to go back to, I forgot her name. What? Like, I'm sorry. If Mark had a threesome, number one, I'd be like, what the fuck? Number two, yeah, like I'm sure he would feel something, but this man was like, nope, no way. More importantly, the betrayed partner, it's really just about the act. It's about the meaning. So you'll hear people say, well, he didn't actually have sex, but it was an emotional relationship. And that hurts me even more because I'm here. I'm available emotionally. We are having sex. We are, you know, this couple that's still desiring each other, but I don't understand why he had this emotional relationship with somebody else or she had an emotional relationship with someone else. That meaning behind it can be so hurtful. The person betrayed thinks they're not enough. They're not good enough. They don't look a certain way. They're not young enough. I hear that all the time. They think, did I miss the warning signs? Was there something I could do differently? Was any of this real? Right? Was any of this life we built real? And for my client, that was this was a lot of the work we had to do, is unravel herself from the act and understand. And for us, we kind of had to just guess around why he did it, just to give her a bit of closure. Closure comes from you, not the other person. So even if he said anything, no one cares. Um, and through this, we understood kind of that, he was going through the identity crisis and so on and so forth. Lastly, I want to talk about, can you come back from cheating? This is controversial. And I say maybe. The only way you can do this, if A, there's accountability and there's no blame shifting. Like, oh, I wouldn't have done it if you. No, you hold your ass accountable for what you did. There is no excuse for what I did. I was working from a very wounded place and you didn't deserve that. And guess what, homegirl, you're going to have to say that a lot. And I'm going to say number 2, the person who is choosing to move forward after being cheated on has to eventually have acceptance for what is and stop holding it over the other person's head. That is incredibly important. We have to say, if I'm choosing to move forward with this person, I'm choosing to move forward with this wound on my relationship. However, I'm moving forward. We're not going backwards. Can we come back for this? The reason behind the cheating is fully explored and owned. This is where therapy or coaching comes in. Both partners are willing to dig deep and do the uncomfortable work because, yes, unfortunately, if some of these patterns are working in your relationship, there's a part of you that's enabling them. Now, again, we can enable people and they don't cheat. They might cheat on you by working more. They might cheat on you by binge eating. They might cheat on you by, gambling. We got to work together to figure that out. And we need to rebuild safety, emotional safety and physical safety. We can rebuild this. Again, that's where coaching and therapy works. But if it's just avoidance, shame, holding it over their head, sweeping it under the rug, eventually you'll create the resentment. You will have hatred towards them and you will rot from the inside out. So if you're someone who has cheated on someone else, I want you to ask, what was I trying to feel, prove, or avoid through this relationship? You need to take responsibility without self-destruction. Take responsibility. This is what happened. I'm not going to numb. I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to gaslight. I'm going to take responsibility and decide if you're willing to look at the parts of you that didn't feel whole. So important. If you can heal those wounds, whether you go back into the relationship or onto a new relationship, you've got to heal those wounds first. Because oftentimes what happens is you cheat, you end up with a person you cheated on. So you're just jumping to a new relationship and none of those wounds were healed. And that's this concept, once a cheater, always a cheater. No, once wounded, always wounded. And my vice for not feeling wounded is cheating. Again, that could be changed by a lot of things. If you have been cheated on, babe, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. This person decided that cheating was their way to escape or whatever it is that they needed. Healing isn't about proving your worth or becoming smaller, getting a facelift, none of that shit. It's about reclaiming you, reclaiming yourself in that relationship. And if need being, reclaiming that relationship if you do choose. You don't have to forgive to move on, but you do have to process it. If you choose to move on, you're like, no, I will not forgive you. That was very hurtful. I don't have to forgive you. You still need to process it, because if you're like, no, I'm not going to forgive him, but you keep playing it over and over again in your brain, it's only affecting you. It's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. You have to process it. You have to allow your body to desensitize to it. And if you choose to not forgive them, you are allowed to do that. So cheating is betrayal. Yes, it is. But it's also a symptom of disconnection. It's also a symptom of misalignment. It's also a symptom of a lack of emotional fluency. So let's stop oversimplifying it and start understanding it, because only through awareness can we stop repeating the same cycles. So that's it. Again, if you've been cheated on, I hear you. I see you. I have never been cheated on. I have cheated. Now I'm a love avoidant. That makes sense. And I will tell you, when I cheated, it was because I was trying to get out of a relationship that I kept being sucked into out of my need to take care of them. But I was so resentful towards them that I wanted to feel wanted. So I ended up making out with this other dude in a bathroom. It's a long time ago. And not proud of it. I'm not proud of it. And I never told that person because I ended up breaking up with them. That was kind of like the, dude, what are you doing? Like, this isn't who you are. This isn't your character. So it's not about you. It's about them. So I want you to remember that. I don't know if you want to share this podcast, but if you do, please share it. Give us a review. If you haven't already, make sure to follow and subscribe. Put that notification bell on so you know when I'm dropping new episodes every Monday and Friday, right? Oh no, Tuesday and Friday. I have 2 podcasts, by the way. The other podcast is Mindset Mirror Connection, and it's all about this stuff, but when it comes to your body and food. Again, follow us on socials at Dating Deja Vu Pod. You can find us on TikTok. Please come over, come look at something so I get at least 1 view on my stuff. I don't know why I'm like in TikTok jail. And one last thing to ponder, it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. See you later.